In this video, traders, we're going to look at the pros and cons and requirements of becoming a professional client with CoreSpreads. Stay tuned. Hey traders, a warm welcome to you. Right, so CoreSpreads are our channel sponsor and they allow you to become a professional client if you match certain requirements. Now, a lot of brokers do this. However, what they offer or don't offer once you become a professional, the disadvantages and advantages vary from broker to broker. So I want to look at the CoreSpreads kind of process and what they do and what they don't offer. Now, backstory on this. Brief backstory, I had done a complete video about this before. ESMA is basically saying, okay, well the ESMA rules are basically right. You now no longer can offer the same level of leverage to retail clients as a spread betting company or CFD company or other company offering leverage instruments as you could do before. So in a nutshell, and it does depend on what instrument you're looking at with your equities, there are different equities, treasuries, commodities, they're all kind of different, but in a nutshell, for example, trading the Dow now have to put up 10 times as much margin. So you're going to have to put up something like £13,000 worth of margin as opposed to maybe £1,300 before. Now, this obviously, if you're a retail client, means you've got to have more money in your account. It's simple as that. If you don't have more money in your account, you have to trade smaller. So it impacts both, obviously, the spread betting company from a commercial perspective because the volumes are lower. Also impacts retail traders as well who haven't got the money or don't want to put that kind of money into a trading account. So that's basically it. You've got to deal with that. But on the plus side, now you have negative balance protection. In other words, as a retail trader, your balance can't go below zero. So you used to be able to, if the market, let's say you're in some sort of currency pair, closed over the weekend, then had some sort of catastrophe and you were long and it gapped down lower. I think SNB, for example, not a catastrophe as such, but a big news item. And if you couldn't get out of that in time, you were stuck with a quite hefty loss because people had a lot of slippage. You would now have negative balance protection, so the company would have to swallow that. So that's a good positive thing for retail traders, I think, because a lot of people are frightened of that. So negative balance protection. There's also things like the risk disclosures, some advertising things they have to do as well. And generally, you know, there's positive reasons why they're doing it. We don't want people trading who shouldn't be trading, and people who are trading should be well aware of the risks involved in it. So, you know, all of that is good, but there is some stuff that potentially impacts retail traders. So you've got a choice now. And now the brokers, spread betting brokers, CFD brokers are basically saying, okay, we can categorize you as a professional client. And if we categorize you as a professional client, then the rules change a little bit. And ESMA rules saying, okay, well, if someone is a professional, we'll go through the requirements of that in a moment, but if they are professional, then you can be a little bit more relaxed on things like the margin the leverage allowances and the negative balance protection and things like this. So there's pros and cons with it. So let's have a look at the CoreSpreads site and see what they're talking about. So become a professional client. You've basically got to be eligible, and this eligibility is the same regardless of which broker you're using. So there's 3 criteria and you have to meet 2 of them. One of them is you've carried out 10 transactions or at least 10 transactions of decent size in leverage derivatives per quarter in the last 4 quarters. So you're an active trader with reasonable size. I'm not sure what they define reasonable size. I guess each is they have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. A second thing is you possess financial instrument portfolio that exceeds 500,000 euros. So this is basically anything except a primary home. And also I think it doesn't include property. Let's just see. Yeah, it doesn't include property. So it's something that's reasonably liquid. So you've got to be liquid 500 grand. Number 3, you've worked as a professional within the financial sector for over a year in that role, and it requires knowledge of derivatives trading. So if you can tick 2 of those boxes, then in theory, you should be able to trade as a professional client. Now, professional clients, the pros obviously are lower margins, and CoreSpreads talk about this here. For example, they've put, you know, if you're going to trade £10 a point on Wall Street at 26,760, with professional client margin, you're putting out 1,338. If you're on a retail margin, you're putting up 13,380. So 10 times the amount you have to put up on retail, so that's a big incentive to become a professional. And there's different types of requirements here. So major FX, 7 times the amount if you're on a retail, 10 times the amount. Oil, I remember oil's just a crazy difference, but so there you go, 20 times the amount, 3 times the amount, and crypto is still as it is. So lower margins is the big thing. Right, the only other thing you've got is the negatives. Let's go to the negatives now. So that's the biggest positive, is the margin requirements, right? The margin requirements there. So the negatives are you don't get that negative balance protection. So that's exactly how it was before ESMA. So in other words, if you lose more or your trade gaps, so you don't get stopped out, you don't get margin called during trading hours, most of the time it's going to be after hours. You're in a stock that gaps, you're in a currency that gaps lower than your account balance. If you're a professional, you have to pay that difference, just as it was before ESMA came in. If you're a retail trader, you can't go into a negative balance. So that's something to bear in mind. If you're trading something where you do have that exposure and you're worried about that unusual black swan event happening, you won't have the protection as a professional client. And they put here as a negative leverage restrictions. We're not required to restrict leverage, so that's actually a positive for you. You can have more leverage and have obviously the double-edged sword that comes with trading with leverage. Another thing that the CoreSpreads specifically do, and again this is where it varies from broker to broker, but CoreSpreads, they still segregate your money. I think they're required to do that. Yes, they are. You still have the FSCS deposit protection. You still have all those other bits and pieces. Now, ESMA don't require disclosures, appropriateness, order execution, prompt execution, risk warnings, leverage restrictions, negative balance protection. So, CoreSpreads don't offer negative balance protection. But the things that might be interesting to us here are order execution, prompt execution. The rest of it is what it is. So, order execution and prompt execution is basically, as a retail trader, you are, as a spread betting CFD company, you're supposed to provide the retail trader with a good execution. You're supposed to put their needs first. You're supposed to kind of make sure they're getting out the best possible price and loads of things like that. So just generally, in a nutshell, better fills, quicker fills. Now, as a pro, they're not obliged to do that. They're not obliged to give you the best possible fill they can at the best possible time. That is ESMA's saying that. However, CoreSpreads are saying they're ticking that box, and on their site here it says that actually they will give you kind of prompt execution and give you good order execution. So that's a positive, and you have to compare that between different brokers and see. So it's something to consider if you are eligible. There are pros, there are cons. The biggest pros, obviously, the margin requirement. The con is obviously a negative balance protection and anything else that perhaps different brokers offer. But anyway, if you want to check out CoreSpreads, guys, the link is in the description below. See you next one. Take care. Bye-bye.